is Monday today, and I think it's the 26th of March. Yes, definitely is the 26th of March. So I'm not at work, you'll see. I couldn't record on Saturday for reasons I'll talk about in a moment, and I didn't record yesterday because I was too busy doing other things as well. So I thought, well, I can record today because for the next 2 weeks I'm on holiday from work. So I always take Holy Week and Easter week off every year. So that's why I'm recording this in the middle of the morning on a Monday instead of a weekend as is usual. And it's quite funny because Wendy asked me, Saturday I went round for a cup of coffee, and she said to me, you know, how does it feel to know you're not in work for the next 16 days? And I said, actually, it will only be Monday that I really realise that I'm not at work, because I would have normally had Saturday and Sunday off anyway. So it's today that you really feel I'm on holiday. I'm not going to work. I'm trying out a new setup today. Necessity is the mother of invention, as it were. I do normally use a lapel microphone, but I misplaced it. I can't find where I put it down. It's in here somewhere, so I'll find it later, but I wanted to get this recorded now. So I'm using my microphone with a stand, which is a good opportunity as well to test the sound quality, because this is the microphone I want to use, for example, if I record with other people at any time. Hint, hint, Wendy. So I guess, having witted for a few moments, I should now introduce myself. I'm Gerard to my family, Peter to my friends, and Boniface to my monastic community. I answer to anything short of hey you, and actually I'll even answer to that from time to time, depending upon my mood. I live in Abingdon-on-Thames in Oxfordshire, in the southeast of England. It's a town 7 miles to the south of Oxford. I live with my 2 cats, Toby and Bunty, who are sitting off to my left as I speak, looking at me, but I think they're actually too busy looking at the birds outside. I am a former monk and a former bus driver, and I knit and crochet and weave and sew and spin and basically do anything that I can that's related to the fibre arts and fabric. So, welcome to any returning viewers. Thank you for coming back to spend some more time with me, and welcome also to any new viewers today. I hope you enjoy this little rambling episode on my life and the fibre arts, and if you do, there are plenty of other videos for you to go back and watch as well. I calculated the other day that in the last, well, it's now 13 months, nearly 14 months. Yes, it was the beginning of February, so in the last 14 months I have recorded more than 76 hours worth of video. So if you sat down today and started watching, you wouldn't finish until Friday. Well, it would be Thursday evening, but you know, if you just went all the way through. So please go and enjoy watching some of the other videos I've made. And don't forget as well, sorry, just to finish on that, don't forget, if you are a new viewer or indeed a returning viewer who hasn't yet, if you click subscribe, you'll be informed of any future videos that I upload and any other episodes in my other series that I might produce for you. So, I've got to be quick today. Well, I don't have to be quick. In an hour or so, I'm going to be going to afternoon tea. Very posh, I say. Bob and Wendy, their sister and mother, Wendy's sister and mother, bought them an afternoon tea experience in Abingdon at a patisserie, a French patisserie in Abingdon, and Wendy's sister is going with them. But they had bought 2 tickets for 2 people each, so I was invited to go along as well to make up the 4th, and I'm obviously very grateful for that and really looking forward to it as well. So I've got about an hour before I need to go, so I'll get this recorded and then I'll edit it and upload it later on this afternoon once I'm back. And the other exciting news of the week, of course, is that tomorrow morning I will be going with Bob and Wendy up to Scarborough for a couple of nights. We're going up tomorrow morning and we come back on Thursday afternoon, early evening. And during that time, one of the reasons we're going is that Wendy and Bob went there on holiday for, I think, for a week, or more or less a week last year, and they found a really nice fabric shop that had some really nice fabrics. And indeed, I think she got this fabric from there. She certainly got the beer fabric from there, the beer mat fabric. And so they want to go back, and they asked me if I fancied going up for a couple of nights, and I said, oh yes, that'd be lovely. So we're going to stay at a bed and breakfast in Scarborough, and and in fact it will give me an opportunity as well to take Bob and Wendy out for Bob's birthday lunch, because his birthday is beginning of February, and I was ill at the beginning of the week, and then at the end of that week Bob became ill and ended up in hospital and had the surgery on his gallbladder, from which he's now more or less recovered. And it's been touch and go until the last few days as to whether or not we would be going, but thankfully he is feeling a lot better, and so he's up to the drive, and it'll be good for all of us really to get away and get some fresh air, some fresh North Sea air blowing at us. I will, of course, be taking the camera and the tripod and the microphone, so I hope to be able to chat with Wendy and Bob about the haul of fabric and other things that we find in Scarborough, and maybe do a bit of filming and talking about a different location for my other series on this channel, The Rambling On. And on the way back on the Thursday, we're hoping to stop off at Ampleforth, so I'll be able to again give some video and some commentary, and maybe even take a photograph of the portrait of my legs for you all to see, and maybe with me standing there, you never know. So we're hoping to put all those things together in the next couple of days. So it's going to be, I'm going to need the second half of my holiday to recover from the first half, because the reason I didn't record on Saturday is I'm a school governor, as you probably already know, and it's a primary school in the north of Abingdon. And we have just replaced some wooden climbing apparatus in the playground with some better designed, or more modern designed, and therefore safer but more interesting climbing apparatus. So we were wanting to dismantle the old apparatus, which the wooden beams that made up the climbing frame were going to be used then by the deputy head to build garden beds for the children to plant flowers and vegetables and so on, and learn about nature. So that's all very positive, and recycling. But the base of the climbing area was this thick rubber carpet, which was necessary obviously to save cracked heads and broken bones and the like. But that has to go to a landfill site, so we had to get a skip in. And by doing it ourselves, it would, the cost of the skip and the penalty for having to dump into a landfill was about £1,000. To get a contractor in to do the work would have cost about £4,000. So the head and deputy head, a number of parents, myself, and the family of the person who runs our after school kids clubs, and the school caretaker all turned up. There were about a dozen of us in total, and we cut down the logs, cut down the climbing frame and carried the logs. The logs are about this big in diameter, and I have a huge bruise on both shoulders from carrying the things. I mean, I was later, well, I'll carry on with the story. So most of the people there were either parents or the family of the Fun Kids Club manager, and they're builders, and they were in their 20s. And of course, I'm not in my 20s, and I'm not a builder. And for the first hour and a half of this, I was keeping a pace with them all. And then I suddenly realised, actually, I'm twice their age. And I had just simply run out of steam. So I then worked around the edges, picking up the smaller bits and just tidying up the areas as they went. And they carried on. And we got most of it cleared. We filled the skip. So there's going to have to be a second session, but the second session is just going to be a few people because it's only a little area that needs to be cleared, but we need to get a second skip in to do that. So we'll still have saved a considerable amount of money. But yes, so I was absolutely filthy dirty. I came home and I had to put everything I was wearing, coat and hat and gloves included, into the washing machine. They've all come out clean, so that's all fine, and we got the work done. And yeah, so that was my Saturday morning, and I was so stiff afterwards. From the neck downwards, everything was stiff. I'd been using muscles I didn't even realise I had, let alone that I'd not used for a while. And I was really quite concerned. I had a bath, and then I went round to Bob and Wendy's for a coffee, and I had to basically shuffle because I could barely bend my legs. So I was really worried that yesterday I would be incredibly stiff, but actually the only bits that, apart from the bruises on my shoulders, which will just go away with time, the only bits that are stiff are the bottom parts of my biceps at the elbow. Everything else is fine. I've been perfectly happy and moving about. So fortunately, it's had no long-term effect on me, but Saturday afternoon was, yes, pretty hairy. Anyway, so that's all done. And we saved the school a considerable amount of money. The children will have got a surprise this morning when they went to school, and their climbing apparatus that they've not been allowed to use is simply no longer there. And we're going to turf it over in the short term and then ask the children what they actually want. The school council will be asked to consider ideas about what can be put there. We're hoping that they will suggest some flower beds and maybe vegetable patches that the children themselves can maintain. So, but we're very much, it's a dialogue with the school council about what's possible and what they would like and what they would enjoy. But in the short term, it will be a turfed area. We'll put a few bench tables on there because one or two of the children like to sit and read during break time, and you know, that's fine. So it'll be a quieter area of the playground where they can sit and have a chat with friends, or they can sit and read a book, and leave the other areas for the children that want to run around and kick footballs and play with hoops and all that kind of thing, you know, the usual thing that children get up to. And it's important to cater for the children for all their different wants and needs in those circumstances. So yeah, so there we are. That was my Saturday. And so on to the real purpose of this podcast, which is my crochet and knitting. Well, I have two, not one, but two finished objects. You may remember a couple of weeks ago I got my Knitting and Crochet magazine, and they had this adorable little bunny rabbit, multicoloured bunny rabbit on the cover, and the instructions on the inside, and a little bag of yarn to make it with. It's not the nicest yarn in the world. It's a very plastic feeling acrylic, but it's quite good for the purpose. So that was the pattern, and this is the finished object. So I decided to name her Penelope. I have absolutely no idea why. I just feel that she is a Penelope. I do have the safety nose and eyes in my stash, but I decided to embroider the nose and eyes onto this one. I don't know why, because I'm not giving it to a child, but yeah, I think the other thing I need to do, although I follow the pattern religiously, the dress is a little oversized, so I think what I need to do is just fasten it across the back with a tacking stitch, and that will make her dress not slip off her shoulders. Yeah, I'm very pleased with the way she's come out, and as you can see, multicoloured legs, multicoloured arms, multicoloured ears, and I'm really pleased with her. So she's going to sit on the side with Humphrey Hippo and all my other little amigurumi that I make, and she'll be a very welcome addition to the family. And it's all done in double crochet, single crochet for Americans, using magic loop, and each of the different parts of the body were made separately and then just sewn together at the tops, so the legs and the arms. Very quick and simple. I say that it can, although it doesn't take as long because there's not as much going on, because you're working in such small diameter circles, because I think the ears and the legs were 9 stitches around and the arms were 7 around. You're working in very confined spaces, so although you're not doing as many stitches, it still takes quite a bit more effort to make the stitches because you're working in such a small and tight area. Excuse me a second while I pour my tea, which has been stewing, mashing as we say in the north of England, but stewing as they say down here in the south, for quite a considerable time, and I probably need to pour it and drink it. Sorry, I thought my cup was leaking for a moment, but it's my kettle that's, my pot that's leaking. Excuse me a second. Delicious. Let me just pop that back down there. I'll talk about the tea for a moment. The tea is a herbal tea. It was a present from Bob and Wendy. In fact, it was a present, I think, to one of their family members, and they didn't like the teas. So it was a big box of Christmas-themed teas, and inside the box there were mini boxes, and there were 2 sets of each tea, and so there are 8 bags in each, and the one I'm drinking at the moment is called Christmas Punch. And I know it's nearly Easter, it's Holy Week, and maybe I shouldn't be confusing the seasons. Particularly, I love the pictures of Father Christmas, one in his green and one in his red on either side. Do I know what's in here? It contains organic green tea with lemongrass, hibiscus, peppermint, ginger and peach. Very nice. And it's delicious. So I'm just drinking. They gave me 6 boxes, but I'm only keeping 5. One of them was a sweet vanilla bread tea. I've tried vanilla coffee before now, and it's just, I don't take sugar with my tea. I like the bitterness of tea and coffee. So I have a friend at work. She's from South Africa. No, from Zimbabwe, sorry. And she absolutely loves sweet teas. I've had a vanilla tea before that I've given her as a gift. And she really, it was a vanilla and coconut tea, which I tried. It was a speciality. Hello, Bunty, have you come to join us? It was a speciality tea that I tried, and it was just too sweet for me, but she really loved it, and her husband loved it too. So I've given her the little box of 8 sweet vanilla bread teas, muslin. So yeah, she was very happy with that. Hello, Bunty. You come to say hello. So my other finished object is my pair of stripy socks. I am so pleased with these. I haven't washed and blocked them yet, but they do fit, and they are the same length as my normal socks, so that's really nice. I love the colour. I just think they are fantastic. As you may remember, this is the West Yorkshire Spinners West Yorkshire Spinners Blue-Faced Leicester Aran weight. So it's 100% wool, but because it's Blue-Faced Leicester, I'm not too concerned about wearing holes in the toes and heels, as long as I keep, you know, look after them well, and they should be fine, at least for a time. And yeah, I knit these 2 at a time toe up, which means that they're exactly the same length, which is ideal, and I didn't have to count rows and all that kind of thing. I got a little bit too close to the end of the yarn when I was binding off, and I had to unbind off half a round and then start again. So yeah, I wasn't paying careful attention to just how much yarn I had left and how much it would take to do a stretchy bind off, because I did most of the leg in 3x1 rib, as you can see, but I did the very top in 1x1 rib just to make it a little bit, pull in a little bit better, because otherwise they tend to flare out at the top, and it does work. But in order to maintain the stretchiness so that I could get my leg in, I had to ensure that I made a stretchy bind off, which I did. And it uses rather more on a round than a normal bind off would, as you'd expect, because you're building in extra stretch by doing a yarn over every... In fact, what I did was I knit one, purled one, cast off the knit one, as it were, then did a yarn over and cast off the purl one, and then knit one, cast that off, and so on and so forth. So it was always building in an extra one at every point. Somebody asked me about the recipe for this. I don't have a recipe as such. For the Aran weight socks, I tend to use 44 stitches. So it was 22 on each needle for the sole and instep, and I then switched to 20 and 24 to make the 3x1 rib, because that meant you're always knitting 3 and purling 1 at the beginning of each round on each needle, so you never get confused as to whether you should be where you should be in the pattern. The pattern I follow is Stacey Perry of Berry Pink Knits. She does a 1x1, a 1 at a time toe up Aran weight sock, and I would recommend starting with Aran weight socks for anybody who's never knit socks before, because it's a lot easier dealing with fewer stitches and larger needles when you're making socks to begin with, and then switch to smaller socks, smaller 4-ply yarn and smaller needles when you want to make other socks. These will be very, I mean, I probably won't wear these out. These will be very nice in-house socks, as it were. So again, it will reduce the likelihood of wear. They could even be bed socks for those people that like to have socks on in bed. I don't myself, but you know, for those that do, they would make very nice bed socks. They're a little bit thick for normal everyday use, I would say. But again, if you go out walking, for example, and want a second pair of socks, which is quite common with walkers, so you wear a thinner pair next to your feet and then these over the top, which would help to insulate your foot quite nicely against the cold. So there's lots of reasons why you might want Aran weight socks, but the colourway, by the way, is their pheasant colourway, which I've mentioned a couple of times. I'm really pleased with these. I'm very happy with the way they've come out. I love the colours, I love the look of them, and I can't wait to wear them. So there we are, that's my other finished object. So, works in progress. I have only, apart from finishing off the socks and the bunny rabbit, I've only really been working on one other thing this week, which is, Toby, you're in the way again. Give me the rest of the yarn, there we go. Which is, I've got it here, bent over the wrong way, sorry about that, which is the muffin. It's kind of, well, it's a waistcoat or a vest, but it's also a matinee jacket. It's only got one button at the top, so it's yeah. I'm making this for my niece Eve. She is having a little boy in July, is the due date, and she sent me a very sweet message asking me if I would be willing to make her something for her baby now that my mother doesn't make anything, and she'd buy the wool for me and everything. And anybody who's watched my podcast knows I don't need anybody buying wool for me. I've got more than enough wool. Anyway, I thought about it. I said of course I was going to make something anyway, so she was very happy about that. And I think I mentioned all that last week. So I bought this cotton, because the baby's being born in July. I thought maybe a nice cotton jacket and sleeveless jacket for the summer, because it's obviously going to be warm, but cotton will help it to keep cool as well. So this is Gossypium cotton. It's a kind of mustard yellow colour. I don't know if it's got a proper name. I'll just put my glasses on again, Bob. No, it doesn't seem to have a colour name. Oh, maybe there. Hang on a second. I can see something coming up. It's called Gift. Don't know why it's called Gift. I must look that up sometime. That's the colourway. And so I have finished the back, as you can see, and I've got to hold the stitches on stitch holders because I will be knitting them on at the tops. It doesn't seem to be grafted, it actually seems to be knitted on, so I'll be interested to see how that actually works. I've also made I've just started shaping the armhole, so this is right side facing you, and I've built in the pocket. I've got the little swatch that I built for the pocket, and that just needs to be sewn on up afterwards and maybe cover up that hole which I seem to have made at the side of the pocket, but there you go, it's nothing's perfect. So a nice way of shaping the corner here, which I hadn't thought about before, which involved knit in the front, then in the back, and then in the front of the same stitch, and it just it really pulls this shape round, and it's really interesting the way in which that worked. I was surprised at the way it worked, but it really has built this corner up. So rather than it being reducing to build the corner, you're actually increasing to build the corner. So yeah, anyway, I will get more of this done today. I probably won't be taking this with me when I go up to Scarborough, because I need to concentrate on the pattern. I need to take with me things that I can do in the car, things that I can do while sitting and chatting with Bob and Wendy when we're in the hotel, that kind of thing. And so you don't want any pattern that's so complicated that I find with social knitting and crochet, it's important that you don't have to be giving all your focus to what you're making, because if in a social context, you're never going to focus all your activity on the knitting and crochet. You're with people and you want to spend that time chatting with them, so you want to be able to crochet or knit whilst having a conversation. So I find that what we call the mindless knitting, but the more repetitive, straightforward patterns where there's not much shaping going on, where it's not critical that the tension is absolutely spot on, I find that tends to be preferable for social environments. So those are my finished objects and my whips. I do have some acquisitions, which I will talk about them in the order in which I received or bought them. So you will remember last week I showed a beautiful little jacket that Wendy had made for a baby, and it has a kind of faux feral effect, or lots of F's in that sentence then, and it's the James C. Brett Fairground DK. Well, I went to Mason's because I liked the effect of what she had so much that I went and bought a skein for myself. So this is 100% acrylic. It's really very soft as well. It's interesting because you don't realise, it was only when I saw how Wendy's had turned out that I thought I had to buy one, because this just looks like a self-striping yarn to me. And it's only when you see it knit up into swatches or into the actual cardigan that she made that you realise the lots of different detail of the patterning that's in this particular skein of yarn. Again, I'll put my glasses on so I can see. This is shade G8. I do love the romantic names they give their colours. I've no doubt that if I looked it up online, I would be able to get a better description of what the colour is meant to represent. I really just like the colours. I think these are very nice spring summery colours. This lovely pale green, almost like, I was trying to think what the green reminds me of. I think it's not as green as grass. It's kind of like a lemongrass green. Almost, it's the kind of top end of the stalk of lemongrass, and this lovely turquoise that's in here, almost aquamarine, and then it's got this purple blue band going around the outside of it, and the browns and the greys. I'm just really interested to see what this is going to look like. So I dare say this will be another jacket for Eve's baby, because that will be a one skein kind of a project to do. It's, as I say, it's really soft. It's very much not like this. I guess the kind of more plasticky acrylic is very useful for amigurumi because it holds its shape much more. This is a very soft acrylic. It almost feels like the cotton that I'm using. It's that soft. Anyway, so there we are. That was my first acquisition. And my second is my, as you know, I'm hosting a make-along for this summer, and I will be launching it next weekend. So the idea is that you can make anything you like in any craft that you like, but it has to in some way reflect the summer. So it's going to run for April and May, so the item that you make will be ready for use in the summer. So if you are a sewer, it could be a summery table runner. Or if you are a weaver, it could be a summery table runner. It can be that you're using a summer fabric for a bag or a dress or a shirt or a hat or whatever. It can be a yarn that makes you think of summer. It can be a yarn or a pattern that is related to the summer in some way. It could even be an afghan that you are going to use as a picnic blanket, perhaps. So it can be anything at all that you can think of that in some way to you means summer. And I'm working on the prizes. I'm going to include a bag that I'm going to make. So there'll be a project bag. I'm not going to promise it's going to be of the greatest quality, but it will be a decent project bag. And I'm going to do some, as I say, this week and next week in particular, once I'm back from Scarborough, I'm really going to be focusing on getting the spinning sorted out. So I will include it as a prize, a hank of hand-spun yarn for you. So it will be a unique one-of-a-kind. I'm not going to promise the quality is going to be brilliant, but it will be a unique one-of-a-kind hank of yarn for you. And possibly one or two other little bits and pieces that I'll think of as the next month or so goes by. So if you're interested in this, just start thinking about what you want to do. As I say, it's going to run from the 1st of April to the 31st of May, which will then bring us right into the summer, and it's any kind of craft that you want to do. Well, I have decided what I'm going to do, or rather I've partly decided what I'm going to do, because whilst I was looking for the fairground, the fairground, which is itself a fairly summery looking yarn, I saw this. This is the Katia Soleil, so which is sun, I guess, and it's the multicolour fuchsia, it's called, and I'm guessing it's that because of the magenta centre of this particular cake of yarn. This is a 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. It is incredibly soft. It really is very soft. It's DK weight. There's 200 grams in the cake, which amounts to 750 meters or 820 yards. I want to make a shawl from this, and I want it to be crochet. Now, it comes free with a pattern either for this knitted shawl or for this crocheted wrap. And I quite like the look of the crocheted wrap, except it is the most boring pattern in the world. I'll read you, it's a free pattern anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But basically, the wrap is on the, sorry, it's two-sided. So the wrap, yes, here we are. It's in lots of different languages, so I've just got to make sure I read the right one. Where am I? Oh yes, there we are. Sorry, I was on the right side in the first place. So it's basically, you chain 280 chains across. So you make 280 chains. And then you basically are doing double crochets, or English trebles, so that's American doubles, and then chain spaces. So basically what you're doing is you're making a rectangular wrap where you're actually starting along the long side of the rectangle, and what I thought were drop stitches are actually just chain spaces. So it's basically lots and lots of treble crochets and then chains interspersed at different widths of treble crochet. And that's fine, but it's a bit basic for me. As I've said many times, I'm a process creator rather than a product creator. So I am currently on the lookout for a more interesting shawl or wrap pattern. So if you know of any DK weight shawl patterns that for crochet that require about 750 meters or about 800 yards of yarn, please let me know. I'll be very interested. I am looking through Ravelry at the moment, so if there are any that you've made that you found really engaging to make, then please let me know. Otherwise I will just have to plump on something and suck it and see, as they say. I mean, this would be very nice, and the final effect would be very nice, and it's a mindless pattern, and I can see that some people would enjoy doing it. I just know me better than that. I think I would get immensely bored about a third of the way through this, if not before, and it may forever be an unfinished object, which I don't want it to be. So I am open to suggestions on patterns to use this. I will show it again one more time. This wonderful, wonderful cake of yarn. I just love, I really do just love it. And I like the fact that they have helpfully tagged the inside end for me to use. So I'll start it from the middle and work outwards. It feels a lot thinner than DK, but actually I can see that it will be a DK, partly because the plies are almost separate in here, as is often the way with cotton. You can actually see the plies of the yarn in there. Anyway, so there we go. So, other acquisitions, yes. One of my other real passions is on YouTube is watching Jenny Doan from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. I just love watching her videos anyway, and I've tried my hand, as you can see, I've tried my hand at a pinwheel, and I want to be doing other quilting going forward. And I went to their website, must be at least a year ago, and saw that they had a magazine called Block, which is a nice one of rather like Pom Pom and Rib. It's almost like a book rather than just a magazine. And unfortunately, when I tried to get a subscription, they didn't distribute to the UK, so it wasn't possible. I've now found a UK distributor, and so I have my first edition of Block, and this is Baby Block, or Block Baby. I mean, if for no other reason, I mean, I just think that's an adorable picture. Sorry, I can't see you now. Well, I've got this behind, so I'm going to have to duck down to see if I can see you. And also on this page, I mean, just look at those babies. I mean, regardless of the quilts, who doesn't like to see a picture of giggling babies? Anyway, so it's a beautiful magazine, as you can see, with step-by-step instructions on how to make the different quilts. The different quilts are listed on the back so that you can see. I really quite like the idea of the tent quilt. Wendy really quite liked the engines one. I'll see if I can find a bigger version of both for you. I mean, I will be able to find a bigger version of both. I just need to see if I can find it. I will. Sorry, I should. There we are. So that's the pattern for the engines one, which would make a very nice quilt. So I'm guessing there would be a template with an applique for that. I'm guessing it would be. Let me put my glasses back on. Sorry, Bob. Bob is always the one that's telling me off for not wearing my glasses when I should, so I really should. Little engines. Yes, so you can go to the website to get the template for the applique, which is good. And the other one I really liked, which I think I might even give it a go because I liked it so much, is this Tiny Tents quilt. So I think you get a better idea of it there, and I just like that. I just like the interest of the different stripes coming in and starting and ending in different places, and then the little tents interspersed throughout. So yeah, anyway, so I got my Missouri Star Quilt Company subscription going, so that's good. So that's my first copy, and they also sent an extra pattern for a fat quarter quilt, which could look like that, I guess. Not sure that I do that one, but it's nice to have the options. And then I also bought one of my regular magazines on crochet, Simply Crochet, and with it came a free set of embellishments. There were 4 bags and I can only find 3 now. Oh well, I'm sure the 4th, oh no, there's the 4th, fell off mine. So there are these faceted beads, multifaceted beads there, then tiny little seed beads, and some sequins, oval sequins. And together, they embellish this lovely elephant head that goes on the wall. Now, this is a crochet project in cotton. I have quite a lot of cotton. I have most of these colours as well. So I think at some point during the summer, this is going to be on my hook. And it's a pattern by Vanessa Muncy. And it comes from her book of animal heads, which is animal trophies made from crochet for people to put on their walls. Which is a little bit macabre, I suppose. I don't think of this as an elephant head trophy. I think of this more as symbolic of the way in which elephants are decorated to take part in pageants and Hindu ceremonies, and is a cultural thing rather than the result of slaughtering an animal for fun. And I think, yeah, I'm a little less... I like the idea of having the animal heads, but I don't like the idea of them being trophies. I'm not... I know I mentioned a few weeks ago about the pheasant's colourway, that I enjoy partridge and pheasant. I really enjoy the meats. The animals that produce the meats, or that become the meats, have generally a higher quality of life than animals that are farmed in the conventional way. I don't like the idea of people shooting animals as fun. So I would never be a hunter myself as a sport. And I know it is a grey area, and I know that 1 or 2 people are concerned about the grey area. I just enjoy partridge and pheasant. I don't like that the people who go on the hunt are paying huge money in order to have fun. But I understand from the estate's point of view that this is how they gain the income in order to farm the birds in the first place, to provide the habitat and the protections that the birds need in order to. So it is a problematical issue, because I don't like the idea that people enjoy killing animals. You don't get the sense that people who work in abattoirs and butcher shops enjoy killing the animals. They do what they do as the necessary step to put meat on the table. And they probably take pride in what they do. Pride in killing an animal in the most humane way possible. Pride in ensuring that when the animal is butchered for sale in shops, that it is presented to its best, so that, you know, Hugh Whittingstall talked about this in his television programs. He's a television chef in the UK, and he runs a small holding down in Devon, and is an advocate that if you eat meat, then you ought to know where meat comes from, and that includes the process of slaughtering and butchering. And if you can't tolerate the idea of slaughtering and butchering an animal, then you shouldn't eat meat. And I'm 100% with that. And it is an uneasy subject. And I understand people's principled objections to the whole process. It's a difficult one. And if I didn't eat partridge, and if nobody ate partridge, then yes, the estates wouldn't produce the partridge, which means that people wouldn't go hunting it. But then the estates wouldn't have the money, and the partridges and the pheasants possibly would not have the habitats that they need in order to maintain themselves in the UK. So it's the grey areas of life that so much of our moral decision making, you know, it's very easy to make a morally virtuous decision when it's black and white. But the reality that most of us face most of the time is that the decisions we have to make are actually grey areas. And so, yes, I am participating and encouraging people to go hunting. But I do also recognise that if they didn't, then the animals would not have the natural habitat in which to thrive. So it's an uneasy balance. Sorry to go back on an old subject, and I know one that distresses people and concerns people, but I don't think shying away from difficult subjects is the way in which we move forward. We deal with difficult subjects by addressing them, by looking them square in the eye and understanding exactly the consequences of what we say and what we do. So that's the way I tend to live my life in the round, as it were. And I think, you know, we have to understand the consequences of everything that we decide to do. Anyway, moving on to more positive things, a final acquisition is not Mrs. Brown's bag, but the 2 Grocery Girls pins that are on there. So this is the Grocery Girls logo, which I love. I love that whoever redesigned their logo. Come on, Toby, away! Don't stop knocking the camera. That's right. I love the person who designed the Grocery Girls logo, because they've managed to incorporate the grocery cart, the shopping trolley, as we'd say in the UK, but the grocery cart because they're Canadians, with the balls of wool peeping out over the top. But the wheels are 2 smiling faces, effectively. Well, they're 2 smiles. And I just think that's a really nice little touch. It's a very cleverly designed grocery cart. And then I just love sock talk, as they say. Although apparently you're supposed to say it in a Brooklyn accent, which I can't do, so it'd be something more akin to sock talk. Anyway, there we are, and this is on my Mrs. Brown's bag, which is the one I generally keep my socks projects in. In fact, there you can see is the tag from the 2 socks I've just finished making, the Blue-Faced Leicester. So that arrived in the post on Friday for me when I'd finished work, so I was very pleased with that. Anyway, so that's all my acquisitions in the round, and just finally in this particular part of the podcast, I have been putting together what I'm taking north with me. I'm going to be taking 3 different projects with me. In the bag made by Wendy, which has my lovely English Rose pin on it, which I got for Christmas, the bag that is, not the pin, I have my secret project, which I'm not going to talk about. So that's in there. I may do some of that. That's a crochet project using cotton. And then in my Miss QBS not-for-profit bag with the lovely Cocker Spaniel on the front, I have, I think that's the right way around. Oops, no, this was the secret project. Lovely lavender bags. Makes everything smell of lavender. I have one in every project bag. I can talk about what's in this one. So that is the secret crochet project in cotton, which I'm not talking about yet. There's my lovely bag of... This is my 2 at a time toe-up socks, the Yellow Brick Road, Just Follow, which I've not been working on while I finish the other socks, but I will now... This is the kind of knitting I will be able to do in the car, because it's 2 repeated rows, basically. So I will wear my glasses, maybe take my magnifying glass with me, because it's such small small needles and small... It's a 4-ply yarn, so it's a 2.75 or 2 5mm needles. It's one or the other. So that's in my little sock sack that Wendy made for me. And I'm also going to be taking my Stephen West Salmon shawl, which I'm making in the Malabrigo Rios. No, the Fino. The Malabrigo, and it is the whatever it is. It's the baby silk packer. That's right. So this is my Malabrigo. I've not done anything more since the last time I showed it to you, but again, it's mostly garter stitch with a few eyelet rows. I have to know where I am in the pattern to know where I'm up to in terms of whether I'm doing a short row section or a cross section. But once you've read the little bit of that pattern, then you know exactly where you're up to, and that's in my Foxy Fox bag. And so that's that. Now, I am going to film an extra little insert, which will go into the video here, which is a kind of mini scientific experiment magic trick for you to share with the young children in your lives, whether they're children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, great-nieces, great-nephews, whatever it happens to be. So I will have an insert either at the very... I've probably put it in here. Right, well, hello, we're back again. I thought today I would just talk a little bit about a nice little trick that you can share with the young people in your life, whether they're your children or grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever, which involves an ordinary pair of 3D glasses. 3D technology has been around for 40, 50 years more in the film industry, and those of you who are old enough to remember, which is probably most of us, let's be honest, will recall the original 3D glasses, which had one lens in red and one lens in blue. And this was to exploit the capability of the brain in creating depth perception that it does every day through our binocular vision. And we've all done this thing where we've held a finger in front of our eye and we close one eye and then we close the other eyes instead, and the finger appears to move from side to side because this eye is looking at the finger from a slightly different position from this eye. So the two eyes are looking in that direction effectively, and so by having two separate, linked but distinctly separate images coming into the eye from a fixed distance apart, because our eyes don't really move sideways in our heads very much, the brain is able to create a 3D representation of the world in front of us and is able to perceive depth within our field of vision. And so film has tried to recreate this effect by filming two separate images from two separate cameras a fixed distance apart, the same distance apart as our eyes are, and has overlaid one with a blue filter and one with a red filter. And this was okay. It was never more than okay, partly because by overlaying a coloured filter on the film that had been produced, it actually reduced the colour depth and the quality and the definition of the images that were produced. And the brain wasn't really kidded into thinking that this was properly three-dimensional. So you'll notice 3D glasses that you now get at cinemas and for 3D home television systems are almost very lightly shaded sunglasses, is the effect that they have. And the way in which these glasses work is by using polarization of light. Light, going back to quantum mechanics, light is a particle and is also a wave. And so a representation of a wave, it's more or less sinusoidal, as it were. So it goes, it's a wave of this amplitude, and the propagation of the wave is from, on this piece of paper, from this side to this side, and you can see it's got the arrow. And normally, in the world around us, light is coming from all directions simultaneously, and so is unpolarized. But it is possible to polarize light in such a way, for example, by propagating it horizontally with the electric field vector perpendicular to the direction of the light. So if the light is traveling in this direction, I think actually the field vector is going from right hand side to left hand side. And if you imagine the lens of a Polaroid lens, or polarized lens rather, as a letterbox, if the lens is oriented the same way as the electric field vector, the light will pass through the lens as the envelope will pass through the letterbox. If, however, the polarized lens is oriented vertically, then the light won't pass through a vertical letterbox. And equally, if it's a horizontal letterbox, then a vertical field vector won't pass through the horizontal letterbox, but will pass through the vertical letterbox. And so the polarized lenses make use of this, and so there is a film on each of them, one of which is polarized perpendicular, and the other one is polarized horizontally. But that's not the end of the story. In order to allow people to sit in different parts of the movie theatre, in the cinema, or to move their heads when things appear to be flying out of the screen at them and not lose that resolution, the lenses also have a circular polarization. One of them is clockwise and the other one is anti-clockwise. And the neat little trick that allows you to produce, so just to finish that, so there are two polarizing films on each lens. One is going, say, clockwise, and then the second is horizontal. The other one is going counterclockwise and is vertical, or vice versa. I don't know necessarily which order that is. But as long as the film has two images overlaid, one of which is polarized, circular polarized and oriented in the same direction as one of the lenses, and so for the other, then your brain will then receive two separate images as if looking in real life at a 3D object, and will do all the computational clever work in the background that makes the 3D image on the screen look 3D. If, however, you look behind the lens at a mirror, then if you look through the left-hand lens at the mirror, the left-hand lens will appear black. And if you look through the right-hand lens on the mirror, the right-hand lens will appear black. And I'll put some footage in so you can see this. And the reason for that is because you're looking out through the polarization going that way, but in the mirror, it's immediately then reflected back and is reverse polarized. So it's then coming back the wrong way, which means that this lens won't see what's coming through that side of the mirror, and vice versa. It's just a nice, neat little trick that you can share with your grandchildren and explain perhaps some of the polarization. So I just thought I would have a slight change from my usual and just give you a small scientific experiment that you can carry out in your own home. All you need is a mirror and a pair of 3D glasses that are polarized rather than colored. And I'll hand you back now to my former self. So bye for now. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I think that's probably everything for today. I will, of course, next week's episode might be longer. I may make multiple episodes depending upon what I film while I'm away with Bob and Wendy. I've just got to go and get ready to go out for afternoon tea, which I'm very much looking forward to. I've got about 20 minutes now. So until next time, stay happy, stay well, stay safe, and keep crafting. So bye for now.